My name is Norma Wandersee. I was born the 5th of August 1923 in Minneapolis, the daughter of Gerhard and Clara von Bank. I had 3 sisters, Leona, Armella, and Lucille. Lucille was 2 years old when I was born. As a matter of fact, we're born on the same day, and we were 20 minutes of being born within the same hour. I always tell my sister Lucille that I was the best birthday present she ever had when she was 2 years old. I don't know if she really believes me, but I tell her that anyhow. My family moved to Delano in June of 1924. My father had accepted a job at the Delano Eagle as a pressman. We first moved to Delano, we rented a home on the highway, and then we rented a home on North River Street. It's the house, yellow house with the big brown windows. Then we moved to another big house on 3rd Street, and my parents bought that. I had glasses when I was 3 years old. So I always say I think I was born with glasses. And when I went to school, when they picked sides for playing games, I was always one of the last ones because glasses were something that you didn't wear and be able to participate in sports. But I had fun anyhow. My mother was an excellent seamstress. She sewed all of our clothes, our dresses for all 4 girls. And when we got married, she sewed all the gowns for the attendants. As we got older, we had our little chores to do. I started school in 1929 at St. Peter's Catholic School. And they had built a new school at that time, and I was the first grade class to be in that school. It wasn't quite completed when we started in September. So they held classes in the basement of St. Peter's Church. And I think it was around Thanksgiving when we moved in to the new school. I had some wonderful nuns as teachers. I've learned so much from them. I took piano lessons, took part in recitals and plays and all the normal things that children do when they go to elementary school. I did a lot of playing in the attic. We had a 3-story house. It was 5 bedrooms, and upstairs was a full attic. And we had a little desk that I would sneak up there, and I was always playing school. Funny, I never became a teacher because I was always playing school. At chores we had in the backyard, we had a garage, 1 story, and then there was a barn attached of 2 stories. We raised chickens. We had to pick up the eggs. We had a wood range in the kitchen, so we had to fill the wood box after school. And we always had a big garden. So we would get up early in the morning to pick peas, and we'd bring them home and shell them, and Mother would can them. Now this was Depression time. We made all effort to save as much money and to raise as much of our own food as possible. We had a time and we were bought pigs, and then we would have them butchered, and we would render the lard, make sausages, and all the things that, and at that time, pigs sold for 3 cents a pound. And in the wintertime, in the fall, when the pullet eggs started coming into market, the egg prices dropped. So they would buy a lot of eggs, and they had what they called liquid ice. They dissolved it in water and put it in a crock pot and put the eggs in that. And we'd have to go down and get eggs for supper, and it was always cold, terribly cold. We spent Sundays church and then relaxation. We went to see Grandma a lot on Sundays. It seemed to be it was every Sunday. And my dad had a sedan Dodge, and it had leather seats. And in the wintertime, They put us 4 girls in the back seat with blankets because that leather seat was awful cold and we had no heater in the car. They also spent a lot of time with their uncles, visiting uncles and playing cards. So it was a lot of family activities. Then came high school. I went to Delano High School. I graduated in 1941. I had some excellent teachers there too. I played a baritone in the band, and after graduation, those that wanted to could join the city band, and I'm telling you, we were kept busy. We were a marching band, we gave concerts, it seemed we were always on the go, but it was an enjoyable time. When I was a senior in high school, my business teacher, Mr. Pultner, approached me and asked me if I would like to go to the Granite Works and work after school and Saturday mornings. At that time, they worked Monday through Friday from 8 to 12 and from 1 to 5, and Saturday mornings from 8 to 12. And I said, I thought that would be a good idea, but it was for experience. I got no pay. It was just to get experience. So after school, I would go down to the Granite Works and I would type P1 letters. It was a prospect letter. That was a form letter, but I'd have to type the envelopes and an inside address. And then later on, then I would send out, when they replied, I would send out the P2 letter, which was a form letter, but it was typed. The whole thing was typed on the typewriter instead of just the address. I worked 20 years as a secretary at the Granite Works. The war came along and we had to keep busy. We had a bowling team which they sponsored, and nice days in the fall and the spring, the girls at the Granite Works would plan a picnic and we'd go out in the woods. It was a very close group. We got to know each other real well, and we liked to be, do things together. It was at the bowling alley that I met Roy. That was in 1941. And in 1942, he was drafted into the Army on May 5th, 42. He served at the 1st Division, and he went in on the invasion of Africa in November of 1942, the invasion of Sicily in July of 1943, and then he went back to England for further training. And he took part in the invasion of Normandy, landing on Omaha Beach. The letters to him were censored. The letters he wrote to me were censored. So we never knew just exactly where he was. The only time I got a letter where I had any indication was after D-Day on June 6, 1944. And the letter came and he said their commander had instructed them all to write home to tell them that they were okay. During the war, things were rationed. Sugar, gas, leather, and the other day I was looking through some things and I found an old ration book that I had saved. It had some stamps in it yet. It was for sugar. And it just kind of, I'm such a saver, but it was kind of interesting to know that, bring back memories of that. My Aunt Mildred was furloughed out. She worked for Ma Bell in Minneapolis, and she was furloughed out to San Francisco during the war. So my sister Lou and I went out there by train, and we had just a wonderful reunion with her and a very nice time. Roy returned in October 5th, 1945, and we were married June 29th, 1946 at St. Peter's Church by Father Newman. Our baby girl was born May 16th, 1947. And of course, then I was off from my work at the Granite Works. At that time, I was asked if I was interested in coming back, which I did do. My duties, I was a secretary, and I took dictation from Mr. Gilmer, and the other ones that I typed letters for were Don Gilmer. He was in the Bert's son, and Chuck King, he was in the traffic department, and Sylvan Askov was in the credit department. They used a dictaphone machine, and it was around cylinders, and after they used it, then you'd have to take it down and shave it off, and it was ready to use again. I took care of the insurance, workman's compensation, and then later on when they had hospitalization and health insurance, I would enroll the one. After 3 months they were eligible to receive it, and I'd enroll them in that, and then file the claims and take care of that end of it. They also bought what they called a Vari-typer. It was a huge typewriter, and it had different size fonts that you could put in it, and they put together the price book with that. It was something new, and it was quite exacting work. I did a lot of that to type the sets for the multilith machine, and then they'd run it off in the multilith machine. In 1950, Roy and I had the occasion to buy a 45-acre farm just out of Delano. He worked at the Delano Creamery, and I kept my job at the Granite Works. We farmed the land. We always had a large garden. We raised chickens and had eggs to sell. We had pigs, and we had cows, not many, but 2 cows. And we also had sheep. At one time in the spring we had 80 sheep, and they were my kind of animal because they were small. I was always a little afraid of cows and bigger animals, but the sheep were fun. And we had a ewe that had 3 lambs at one time, and of course she deserted one, and we raised that one on a bottle. It became a regular pet. We called it Mitzi. Afterwards, Roy and I started going to Army reunions, and they were always out east. And he never talked much about his service. But after the day's meetings and that, we would gather in different ones' hotel room, and then that's when the boys opened up. It was touching to see the camaraderie that they had amongst themselves. They were brothers. They took care of each other on the battlefield. So it was really something to witness. In 1974, Roy and I took a battleground tour to Europe. We went to Ireland, to England, to France, to Germany. It was a 2-week tour, and then 1 week we could stay if we wanted to and go to wherever we wanted to. So we met 2 nice couples on the tour, and we went to Switzerland. At one time, we went to the beach, Omaha Beach, on June 4th, just to get us used to being up there. And then on June 6th was the Memorial Day for D-Day. And that was quite an experience. It was very, very hard for Roy, but we both enjoyed it. I got to see where he had been on the different battlefields. We met with the 116th German Panzer Division, who the 1st Division had fought in the Battle of the Bulge. And there was a gentleman there in a wheelchair. He had lost both of his legs in the Battle of the Bulge. He was a German soldier. And he painted 2 pictures for us to take back to the 1st Division Museum at Wheaton, Illinois. It was just wonderful to meet with these people. They fought in World War II, and they met as friends. We also took a trip to Hawaii in 1976. In 1979, I was left out of my job at the Granite Works, and so I found a job at Mammoth in Plymouth. And when the personnel manager took me around, he showed me the inside of the shop, and to my surprise, the first one I saw was Bill Horsch, John Stein, Jim Dunguski, and so it was like old home week. Well, they hired me in the sales department. I'd never worked in the sales department before. After my 20 years at the Grand Works as a secretary, they asked me if I wanted to go up to bookkeeping, and I ended my work there at the Grand Works in the bookkeeping department. I worked with Gladys Milford. We just had a wonderful relationship, and then she retired, and I took over as head bookkeeper, and it was very, very much fun with her. A lot of fun. I worked at Mammoth in Plymouth until my 65th birthday in 1988. I retired. And I guess when people find out that you add 1 and 1 and come up with 2, or multiply 10 by 10 to come up to 100, they look for you to fill in here and there. And in 1990, Father Bob from St. Peter's Church asked me if I would consider coming and working part-time and doing the book work, which I did. And they were getting ready to go on a computer. So I worked with Deacon Lauren Yeager. He was setting up the programs for the computer. And so we've got that going. And in July 1993, I had some heart problems. I had an angiogram and angioplasty. And 6 months later, in January 1994, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. Surgery and 15 chemo treatments followed, and of course I couldn't come to work in the bookkeeping anymore at the church. After I recovered, Father Bob says, "How about taking over the cemetery work?" So at that time I said, well, that sounded interesting, so I do the book work for St. Joseph's Cemetery and Calvary Cemetery, which is St. Peter's Cemetery. I transferred all the information, the burial information, date of birth, and if the lot was paid for on the computer. And the computer was set up by Gene Johnson, and he did a wonderful job, and everything's working fine. I also do a lot of other work, charitable work. I do a lot of work at the St. Peter's School. My sister and husband, we clip coupons and Campbell's soup labels, and it's surprising. I've just finished a bunch that I had prepared, and I have $248. They get 10 cents for Betty Crocker coupons, and I have $248 to turn in for the school. Campbell's soup, they get playground equipment and things like that. So it's a saving thing. It's a little work, but it's well worth it, and when you got time to do it, why not? I joined the General Federated Women's Club several years ago, and of course they too found out I could add 1 and 1, and they elected me as treasurer. I held that job for 4 years, and I just relinquished that. So we also take care of library books as they come in for new books and repair them at St. Peter's Library Church. I have Mary, our only daughter. She went to St. Teresa's College at Winona as a nurse, and she works now. She's worked for Wright County as a public health nurse for 25 years. She has 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, Jonathan, Michelle, and Patrick. And I have 2 great-grandchildren, Maria, who's 4, and John, who's 2. I still live on the farm. Roy passed away in March of 1999. I live on the farm, and the grandchildren come and they mow my lawn. They plow my snow, and I also have, Mary and Michael take me to their trailer home on Lake of the Woods. And we go ice fishing in the winter time and also fishing in the summer. And in July of, let's see, that was 2006, I caught a big walleye. It was 29.5 inches long. So they said, mount it. And I thought, what do I want to mount a fish for? But they encouraged me, and so I have it mounted. And that was in July, and then the following January, Mary dethroned me as a fishing champion. She caught a walleye 30 inches long, but that's good. She's an ardent fisherman, and it's good. I'm lucky to have my family close by. They take good care of me, and I'll keep volunteering as long as my health stands up.